A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for coming in. So should we all start working from home?
Well, not necessarily. But I think that the emphasis should be, what are the employers' rights? I think the media has been flooded with what are rights of employees with COVID-19, washing your hands often enough, hygiene becoming paramount, having access to sick leave, making a request to work remotely. If an employer has protocols in place, which something says you should not attend a meeting with more than 15 people in there, or in our organization, given COVID-19, you should not be hugging and holding each other or shaking hands, and you do so. The question that comes about is whether the employer may institute disciplinary action against you for failing to abide by those rules which are meant to protect you. So I think that's something that's going to come about in the near future, given the increase in the number of individuals who have contracted or who have been exposed to COVID-19. The issue about flexible working arrangements, that's something that has been in existence in South Africa for a considerable period of time, and especially with the introduction of, or with the emphasis on the fourth industrial revolution, a number of people have explored this. It's come now to the forefront that given the fact that individuals are now exposed to COVID-19 and it may be dangerous to work from the office, will you be able to request that you work flexibly? Well, firstly, you can make the request. The employer should consider it having regard to the safety of its employees generally. But we must understand that the flexible working arrangement is only applicable to a very unique segment of our society. The vast majority of people in mines and retail operations, in warehouses, do not have the luxury of asking to work flexibly because their work requires them to be at the office all the time.
I want to then go back to your earlier point where you said what needs to be explored at this moment is the rights of employers. How far do those rights go, given that what's going on here is a rather unplanned scenario? We're dealing with a global health emergency to an extent.
So true, and I think a number of the interviews that you've had on this channel, as well as in the media, have focused on the rights of the employee. You've got to ask yourself is, in an endeavor to protect the employee, if the employer establishes a set of rules and you as the employee do not abide by those rules, can the employer discipline you? Yes, you can. The rule is reasonable. It's there to protect you and to protect the safety of all your colleagues. The other thing that we need to start thinking about is whether, as a result of COVID-19, even though you have a quarantine period of 14 days, whether this may operationally impact on the organization to the extent that COVID-19 may be one of the reasons why the employer starts embarking on a retrenchment process.
And in the event that one is in quarantine, for example, we're hearing about people being quarantined for 14 to 21 days in self-isolation. We have the issue of sick leave that then arises if I'm away from work due to poor health. How do the two parties, the company and the employee, manage that relationship legally?
So from the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, you're entitled to sick leave over a 3-year cycle. Provided that you have a medical certificate, you're entitled to that sick leave and to be paid for it. But if you decide one day that I think I should self-quarantine myself without any sort of medical backing in relation to it, without a medical certificate, the employer is not obliged to pay you for that period. In fact, it may go so far as to say that if you self-quarantine, the employer may be within its rights to institute action against you for absence without permission, because your absence is not validated by a medical diagnosis or a medical certificate. The question then comes about is, I think that I have COVID-19, I cannot afford the testing, the private testing through Lancet or the like, what are my rights in relation to that? And those are going to be the issues that are going to come about in the weeks ahead. We've been told what we are required to do.
Okay. Adil, thank you so much for coming in and explaining that to us. That was Adil Patel. He's with Cliff Decker Hofmeyr, speaking about that employer-employee relationship during these times of COVID-19.